Consumer New Zealand has outlined a vision for the future of consumer rights in New Zealand, aiming to address emerging challenges like online scams, and my gosh, aren't they popping up faster every day, excessive surcharges and misleading sales tactics. The organisation calls for updates to the Consumer Guarantees Act and the Fair Trading Act to keep pace with modern issues, including stronger protections against deceptive pricing. This vision also includes enhancing consumer education, encouraging more transparency in markets, and ensuring that us, the customer, has the tool and knowledge to make informed decisions. The goal is a more secure and equitable marketplace for all Kiwis. CEO Jon Duffy advocates for the government to bring local laws in line with international standards, and he joins me now. Jon, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Leah. How are you going?
I'm good, and a fiddly diddly dee potato. Happy St. Paddy's Day. I don't know if it's a good thing for you. Yeah.
Not really.
Not really, Leah. It's just another day, isn't it? Oh, well. We'll get on with it. Hey, my friend, the cost of living remains people's top concern, and most complaints you receive, I've read, suggest that too many businesses are not meeting their obligations under the Consumer Guarantees Act. Do you think they're purposely misleading the public?
Look, I think it's a very poor business that actively goes out to intentionally mislead the public. But I think what we've seen over the last kind of 15 or 20 years is, particularly with bigger businesses, the investment in customer service and systems that make the customer experience better. The investment's been whittled down and down and down. Yes. And as a result, 20 years later, 15, 20 years later, you've got this kind of cold nub of what used to be the ethic of good customer service, and really it's just a notional thing now. You think of contacting your telco company or contacting your power company or going to the supermarket, any of these big firms, right? Customer service is not what it used to be, and that's down to a lack of investment.
Yeah, good point. You try and ring somebody, that's if they even have a number, and then you just you put on hold, or they don't get back to you, or when they do, you still don't get what you want. And that would be purely money, wouldn't it, Jon? They just don't want to pay people to do that, to be customer service or front-facing.
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of things going on there. I think you're right. The investment in those services is high. But also, when it comes to, I don't know, I remember trying to cancel my Sky subscription or follow up on a phone with my broadband. You're led through these kind of labyrinthian paths, through websites, through chatbots, trying to find a number to actually call a human being to discuss the problem that you're having with them. Businesses can actually go out of their way to make it difficult for you to do things that they don't necessarily want you to do. So when it comes to unsubscribing from a service, they don't want you to unsubscribe. So they're incentivized to make it difficult for you to do that. Flip that on its head. I mean, so you talked at the intro about us saying, laws need to line up with what's going on internationally.
Yeah.
In Europe, for example, they look at that sort of thing and they go, well, you should make it as easy to unsubscribe from a service as it was to sign up to the service in the first place. And we all know how slick the onboarding processes are for many companies, right? They want to make it frictionless for you. Well, they should make it frictionless for you to unsubscribe.
In fact, you subscribe without knowing, Jon. That's how they do it.
Well, look, HelloFresh is being prosecuted for that at the moment. Yes.
In some cases, yeah. But I know what you're saying. So easy to get in, not almost impossible to get out. And, is it a case, Jon, you've just made me think, you said overseas, which, they go, hang on, you've got to make it both ways. Is it partly because as a nation we don't complain, or are we getting better at that? Do we just roll our eyes and go, oh, well, it's just part of what happens?
Oh, look, I've built my career on dealing with people's complaints in the consumer space. So we definitely complain. We might not make a big deal about the fact that we complain, but there's definitely a percentage of the population that complains, and thank goodness, because that's the consumer voice being heard, right? If people just dutifully accepted what was handed out to them and didn't go, hold on, we can do better than this, then everybody suffers. So
Yes.
for those squeaky wheels, good on them, because it makes
Good on
life
them.
better for everybody most of
John,
the time.
can we look at just some of the things that have been brought up by Consumer NZ? How do you think consumer protection laws better address the rise of online scams and deceptive sales practices, which we've actually just talked a little about? But online scams, what are you lining up that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we really need to do more as a country here, where the conservative estimate, and I think we've spoken about this before, the conservative estimate is $200 million a year going offshore in scam losses. And we know that there's massive underreporting. So that's the floor. The actual figure is likely to be higher than that. So we've got a whole lot of government agencies that have an interest in a little slice of the scams and fraud pie, but they're not being coordinated. They're not working together to protect New Zealanders. We've got the banks, we've got the telcos, we've got the social media platforms who are all making money from providing services to scammers, effectively. So, a lot of scams we see these days originate from advertising on Meta, on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram and Facebook, they make money from those ads being placed.
A lot of it, Oh, I see.
And then, I don't know, if it's a text message scam, well, that's communications that you pay for. And then, through the bank fees that you pay, when a bank makes a transfer, they're profiting from your custom. Are they putting sufficient roadblocks in place to create the friction that you need? If you've been scammed, there needs to be an inflection point, right? Someone needs to say to you, hey, stop and have a think rationally about this transaction.
Yeah.
And so we're encouraging the banks, and admittedly, in fairness to the banks, they are making some efforts. We think more needs to happen, and we definitely agree that the platforms like Meta and Google need to be brought to the table and need to be held accountable for the amount that they're contributing to scam losses.
It's interesting, John, over the years I've heard that. I mean, not saying just from you, but, these big social media behemoths, they've got to pay more tax, they've got to do this, they've got to have more, what you've just said, and it just seems no one can wrangle them in. They're just bigger than, it's a very difficult situation.
Well, I think, so we're part of Consumers International, and, part of it being World Consumer Rights Day, we interact with our international counterparts, and we're all having the same problems across multiple jurisdictions. And if we actually get together and get a bit more coordinated about how we deal with, let's just use the platforms as one example, it's only when we're working together across jurisdictions that we'll have any impact. If you think of how much money Facebook makes in New Zealand, there's probably a rounding error on their P&L, right? It wouldn't actually be a huge deal for Facebook to say, actually, we're going to just pull out of New Zealand because, we make much more money in other jurisdictions.
Sure.
So we don't have a lot of leverage, but we do as part of a global community.